Donald Trump's regime keeps throwing America to the wolves, and MAGA sheep keep falling for it. They have no clue. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe. I want to talk today about a bunch of things that are happening. And the changes Donald Trump and his regime are making are happening slow enough for people to not be startled, but fast enough so that when we look back at it as students of history, we will see how close and how fast Donald Trump betrayed the American people and the promise of taking care that the laws be faithfully executed. First of all, demolition of the White House East Wing has already started. It is a destructive visual of destruction of historic building. You would think that a developer, somebody who always considers himself a developer, would find a way to keep the East Wing, even if they were to build a grotesque ballroom somewhere in the White House grounds. You would think they would incorporate the historic building into it, but no, it is a demolition of a historic building to replace it with a ballroom that is funded by American oligarchs. And how the symbol of that is so grotesque, so oligarchical, so against the nature of the muted governmental architecture that we have had in the White House, in the People's House, and Donald Trump is demolishing it without even going through the Capitol Building Commission and the Capitol Region Building Commission. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. The National Capital Planning Commission. And the head of that commission, appointed by Donald Trump, says that Donald Trump's massive and destructive changes to the architecture of the White House does not need an approval from the commission. Well, so it continues while we are in the 21st day of Donald Trump and MAGA's government shutdown. We don't know what the economic repercussions of it are. Bureau of Labor Statistics had delayed their figures for the 24th of October, so they're going to release it this week. We'll have to see what the implications have been, or whether we'll see the implications of the shutdown in this report or the next one. But the GOP commingled the No Kings protests with the shutdown. When conflating those two, the protests were planned long before the shutdown happened. And the shutdown became a talking point of the protests because the shutdown happened because Donald Trump and MAGA want to take away from Americans affordable health care by way of ending the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies on medical premiums, as well as cutting $1 trillion from Medicaid in the big ugly bill that they passed a few months ago. So $1 trillion gone from Medicaid and an end of the subsidies provided by the Affordable Care Act is what the Trump regime is gunning for, and that's what the Democrats want to stop. Democrats want Americans to have affordable health care, and Democrats don't want $1 trillion in cuts in Medicaid. And we are seeing, when it comes to the executive spending, that how Donald Trump is violating the Constitution by rescinding what the Congress appropriates, because it is Congress's power to appropriate funds and to allocate funds, and it is the president's job to follow congressional appropriation, and he's not doing that. He is, through the Office of Budget Management, Russell Vought, stopping payments and making payments from funds that are appropriated for other reasons into paying the military and commingling funds indiscriminately without a say of Congress. In the sector of education, the Supreme Court handling of executive power cases underscores the constitutional crisis emerging from inadequate checks on presidential authority. Maintaining federal education infrastructure serves as an essential bulwark against both constitutional violation and democratic erosion in an era of unprecedented political polarization. That's from one of the references that I have included in the description box. Please check them out. In terms of constitutional violations, I've talked to you about the constitutional violations of the First, Fourth, Fifth Amendments. If the discrimination is coming through states, then like building state detention facilities in Florida, then by violation of the 14th Amendment, violation of the 8th Amendment, and then you have violation of the separation of powers and checks and balances. And Congress has thus far failed to serve as a check on executive overreach, perhaps out of fear of political retribution. Thus, it is falling to the courts to robustly fulfill their constitutional role in policing the executive branch when it violates the Constitution and laws enacted by Congress. But we have here a Supreme Court that is biased towards in favor of Donald Trump and that regime, and we're seeing that in the court's rulings over and over again. The things that the president cannot do, he is being allowed to do on a temporary basis while the Supreme Court withholds any reasoning by allowing equitable remedies in favor of the regime as opposed to individuals who have been harmed. The president cannot legally punish private companies and public organizations for diversity programs, something that we know that he's cutting funding for indiscriminately, and there's no check. Congress has put no check on it. A president cannot legally punish his political opponents. What we're seeing with Comey, Bolton, Letitia James, that's exactly what he's doing with a weaponized Justice Department by pushing out career prosecutors and appointing Trump lackeys who will do exactly what Trump says, the law notwithstanding. So the president cannot legally run for a third term. That's in the 22nd Amendment. The president cannot use the Alien Enemies Act, which he has used several times to deport people, render people, detain people and remove them from the country without due process of law. When it comes to enunciated powers, enunciated rights in the Constitution, the 14th Amendment gives birthright citizenship constitutional protection that nobody can take away. And Donald Trump has asked the Supreme Court to uphold his ban on birthright citizenship. Then we have a chaotic economy because of the shutdown and political rights. When America's economy tanks and millions of Americans lose their jobs, federal programs are set up to automatically juice family spending. Economists call these programs automatic stabilizers because they help keep the economy from completely bottoming out, and they often don't require new government action. Most Americans know them as unemployment insurance, Medicaid, and food stamps, otherwise known as SNAP. The food stamps are known as Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. But they may not be so automatic in the next recession, thanks to the Republican signature domestic policy package, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, by making the government's best response tools less generous and more cumbersome. Some economists say the new law is likely to amplify the effects of the recession. Of course, because you are taking away the guardrails that the government had put in so that people would not spiral out and not have the basic food and health that is necessary so that American economy and the American infrastructure doesn't fall. And MAGA is not seeing this. They are thinking that me coming out here and talking about Donald Trump is somehow attacking Donald Trump for no cause. But no, these are substantive things that Donald Trump is doing to harm the people who are attacking us for warning them about it. That is the disposition that we are in now. This toxic stupidity and the stubborn ego of not realizing, even after seeing with their own two eyes what is happening, that you can't really argue your way out of this. We are 10 months into it, and we're very well stepped into some really big doo-doo. And, it's to that extent, Donald Trump's video for the No Kings protest was prophetic, because that's what he has done to the country. He has shot all over the country, and everything from economic policy to constitutional guardrails. And somehow, because he is able to brainwash and inundate people with fear and generalizations and attacks on the Democratic Party, MAGA base sees Donald Trump's war on Democrats as being a politically relevant thing for them to worry about. When for real, in real terms, what they need to be worried about is the cost of living, is the grocery prices going out. Price of meat is up by 10%. Coffee is up by 40%. Bananas is up by 8%. That's bananas. And healthcare costs are going to go up. We're going to see a problem with food supply because of SNAP being stopped. You see the energy prices going up by 10%. I've included these references in the reference box from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is the last data. I don't know if they're going to revise it to all be hunky-dory in October and November, because Donald Trump fired the person who was coming up with the reports in good faith. So everything is on the line and the prices are going up incrementally. But while MAGA sees this happen, they are still nervously in support of Donald Trump's policies that still haven't come back and bit them in the ass, which is what it's going to do. And here is the non-MAGA cohort warning and warning and warning everything from the economy to the environmental impact of Donald Trump, the disastrous EPA deregulations that are being implemented and that are going into motion, that are stopping National Weather Service, stopping monitoring pollution levels in rural areas and inner cities. There is indiscriminate destruction of programs that uphold the American infrastructure. And so MAGA sheep, here is my message to you. You may hate what I'm saying. You may make fun of the black and white videos and my voice and whatever else you want to. But at the end of the day, what I am telling you right now is what Donald Trump and his regime are doing to American security, American economy, American well-being, American education, American environment is toxic. And it is going to come back and haunt you, because 70% of the people who are going to be impacted by the SNAP assistance cuts and the Medicaid are in Trump states that voted for Trump in 2024. So we are warning you about Donald Trump betraying you, but you don't believe us, so you're just going to have to wait to be eaten by the wolf. then you will realize when they bite down that Donald Trump's regime has come for you as well, and that it does not care that you voted for him in 2024. With that said, please stay aware. Please try to look at the news. Check out the references I've provided in the reference section. Read them. When you go to the grocery store, look at your bill. When you're seeing energy prices going up, look at your bill. When you see more pollution and air becoming unbreathable, look to the EPA that has cut all regulations. You will feel this. And when you start feeling it, you're not going to accept it because your ego is not going to let you. So we're just going to have to see how long you can suffer before you come around to realizing that Donald Trump is not your friend. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.